Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to you. You're watching a brand new episode of Encounter. Today, in this episode, we have Dr. Vedika Chegori, who is still here with us to talk about a second part on the essence of Upanishads. Dr. Vedika, thank you very much for still being here in the studios of the MBC.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
One of the observations I have made during the previous encounter is 2 to 3 times you mentioned that the Upanishads is not a religious text, but more of a spiritual text. I should have asked you that question before, but better late than never. Why do you keep saying this?
Thank you for this question. Yes, I'm saying this because I have personally noted a misconception, not only in Mauritius, but in the Indian diaspora, if I can say so, that many a times people, they label Upanishads as in terms of a religious text. And as I spoke earlier, a religious text has a certain preconditions, a certain prerequisite. And by no means an Upanishad happens to look or to conform into a religious structure. Now, there are many reasons for that, in fact. So let me tell you that let us first try to understand what is the basic difference between religion and spirituality. Perhaps you would agree with me that a religious person is not a spiritual person, and a spiritual person may not necessarily be a religious person. So a religious person is usually guided by practices.
Yes.
You know, behavioral practices.
And rituals.
Rituals, exactly. Accepted by a certain group of people. They have their sermons, they have their rituals, as you said, they have the sacred books to which they have to adhere, etc. But spirituality is very personal. It is not something external. It is something that you experience inward. It's your personal experience. There are no set parameters within which you have to think or do or practice. It's open. A spiritual person, first of all, there are 2 interesting characteristics about a spiritual person. First of all, a spiritual person respects all religions. And secondly, he is aware that all these religions, they come down to one basic universal truth.
Unconditional love.
And unconditional love. There is a maxim in Sanskrit which says, so it says that ekam sat vipraha bahuda vadanti, which means that truth, the ultimate reality, is only one.
Yes.
But sages, saints, religious people, people of faith, they may call it by different names. So that's spirituality. We are not attached by any sermon. So Upanishads, I repeat, they are not texts, religious texts. They are spiritual texts.
From what you just said, can anyone study the Upanishads?
There are certain prerequisites, you know, that one has to consider while undertaking a study of Upanishads. Now, let me give you a glimpse about how it used to happen in the ancient time.
All right.
Upanishads, the knowledge of Upanishads was not offered haphazardly to anyone, or anyone just having this wish, I want to study the Upanishads. There was a certain training, a certain grooming, a certain sadhana, or if we can call austerities.
Yes.
So first of all, practice of austerities, which included cleansing your inner and your outer. And whomsoever the seeker is, the Upanishads, we are talking about it. The Upanishads, one interesting method of the Upanishad is that they're in the form of a conversation, in the form of an encounter, if you want.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. There are very interesting conversations, sometimes between the teacher and the disciple, sometimes between the father and the son, sometimes a discussion between the husband and the wife, sometimes you have the guru and the king. So if the person, the seeker, happened to be a king, he had to renounce his comfort, his luxury, keep aside his ego, his authority, and with all humility, he approaches the guru. May I be imparted this knowledge.
Okay.
So once he qualifies himself with all these external tests, now the Upanishad begins. He sits at the feet of the guru.
Okay.
It's not only metaphorical, but it is also very significant. Sitting at the feet of guru portrays the idea of devotion, commitment, and respect.
It is what you defined at the beginning of the first episode of Upanishad.
Upanishad. We do have this Guru Shishya Parampara in certain parts of India, perhaps in certain parts of the world. But for our new generation, for our younger generation, we have all these texts, all these commentaries, all these interpretations. I must bring Sri Shankaracharya here. Sri Shankaracharya is one of the greatest philosophers. You know, he was the propounder of what is called the Advaita Vedanta philosophy.
Of course.
And he has been the most authentic commentator of all these Upanishads.
Okay.
So according to Muktika Upanishad, there are about 108 Upanishads. Different critics tell you different numbers, but let us agree on 108 as per the Muktika Upanishad.
Okay.
But out of these 108, Shankaracharya has written his commentaries on the 10 principal Upanishads. It means that the whole cosmos, matter, energy, life, body, the macrocosm and the microcosm, they are all pervaded by one absolute. Upanishads call it Brahman. Youngsters can understand it as consciousness.
Okay.
So we are living in a field of consciousness. And that is the reason why scientists in the early 20th century, they took so much interest in the Upanishads.
We did not have time to listen to the full answer about who can study the Upanishads. Can you please complete the answer, because I have a few more questions for you.
Surely. So everyone can study Upanishads, and we have it in different languages. If you're comfortable in French, you can study it through the medium of French, English, Spanish, Latin, Greek. Nowadays, I think there's a project also on translating the Upanishads in Creole Mauritian to reach out to the Mauritian community.
What about in Mauritius? Where can you study it?
Yes, for the study of Upanishads, the Mahatma Gandhi Institute is offering so many courses in Upanishads. You were talking about the School of Indological Studies.
Yes.
So precisely under this school, we have a department of philosophy, and we are offering courses in Upanishads at different levels. We have it at the level of diploma. We also have it at the level of undergraduate, in our undergraduate programs like BA Honours Indian Philosophy. And it is also taught at MA level, MA in Indian Philosophy.
For a master's?
For a master's degree.
What are the prerequisites, though?
The basic qualification of HSC, but not necessarily Hinduism.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is again open for all those potential candidates who wish to have knowledge, develop their knowledge, understanding of Upanishads. Interestingly, during the pandemic period, when we were in confinement, we started an online awareness course on Upanishads. It's simply to reach out to the Mauritian community. And I must say that we got a massive response.
Oh, wow.
So many people of different age groups who were interested, who connected with us. And we try to share some of the basic knowledge of Upanishads with them. We are also having requests from the regional countries, you know, who show interest in subjects of Indology, on rather the topics that you take on Encounter.
What are the other fields where you can work or earn a living when you study ancient scriptures? What are the openings that you have?
Yes, so teaching line is there, communication is there, journalism is there. Content development is something quite new, especially in this digital era, where you can condense these values, this fundamental knowledge, you know, and you develop a content for OTT. You can develop content for YouTube. You can become a YouTuber.
Okay.
You know, at the comfort of your home.
Yes.
You see, you can become a writer. You can become a philosopher. Most importantly, you can become a reformer. So contribution in terms of ideas, and any country which has developed, it has developed on the basis of ideas, and ideas develop when there is critical thinking. Ultimately, the goal of teaching Indian philosophy or Upanishads is to have a better society and to help human beings achieve their perfection, what can be called as self-realization.
You mentioned in the first episode what change happened in your life. I would like to ask you this again. If you had to, the cream of the crop, what would be the essence of the change that happened? I'm sure our viewers would be very much interested in hearing this.
I would say that our modern times is facing two main problems nowadays. Firstly, it is tension at personal level, at individual level, and terrorism at universal level. Terrorism in whichever form you call it. Okay? So everyone, every individual is suffering in some way or the other, and that's the reality of any individual who is born. You know, he will encounter, he will be facing some of the difficulties. But what to do in such a situation? So most of our problems, we have to identify the root cause of all our problems. And the root cause of all our problems is attached to our ego. The ego which develops the sense of individualization, that which, through which occurs the superiority complex and inferiority complex. I am better, you are not. I know this, you don't know.
I'm entitled to that, you're not entitled to that.
Exactly, you know. So that goes on multiplying the divisions, that goes on multiplying the gap. In a way, the person who is doing it, he loses sight of himself. What I mean to say, he loses his own identity and starts identifying himself with his status, position, background,
Yes.
which is ephemeral, which is material, which is physical. Nothing is permanent about it. Everything is temporal.
Of course.
Some are very happy, I have a very sharp mind. Some are very happy, I'm so handsome or beautiful. But all these things are just temporal. We have, Upanishads make us realize that let us not waste our time on things which are evanescent, which are changing. Let us focus on that which is the absolute. Let us focus on that which is eternal and everlasting. You see, in Vedanta, again, which is related to Upanishad,
Because it will relate to the ego also.
Yes, indeed. So there is a very interesting concept which is called Maya. And Maya, which means illusion.
Yes.
Illusion is so lucrative, so alluring, so pulling, you know, that it veils our vision, you know, veils our vision from the reality.
It feeds our sensory pleasures.
Stimulates our senses, our sensory pleasures, and we run after sensual gratification. And that is so engaging and so indulging that we deviate from our real self, from our inner self. And therefore we focus on amassing that more, experiencing it further, and we are lost, you know. So those people, maybe, well, such type of people, they live only at the physical level.
Yes.
They forget that there is a mental level also that has to be explored and much to gain from there.
And the conscious
and
level.
Beyond, exactly, you're right. And then the consciousness level. Everything is prescribed in the Vedas, in the Upanishads, but who is taking the pain to read it, to understand it, or to transmit it? As I said, the power of Maya is alluring, enticing, but at the same time, it is not helping us to reach our goal.
You have to know the dance before you know the ups.
I would agree on that, yeah. Let us taste all. There is a time for everything, you know. Otherwise, we will not be able to know what exactly is called self-realization. So let us all enjoy the physical plane. We're doing it. But let us raise above.
What is, for the present generation, studying the Upanishads, how is it relevant to us nowadays?
It is relevant to us nowadays because...
when taking into consideration what are the main problems that we have.
Right,
Exactly.
yes. So stress and terrorism we were talking about, if we happen to, through our practices, spiritual practices, control our ego, we will create a better world, a more harmonious world, a more just world. It is very important. And we will respect the other. The problem is with the I and the other.
Okay.
Okay? It is said, Tattvam asi, thou art that. I am Brahman, you are also Brahman. There should not be any division or discrimination.
Surely.
Most of the fights, most of the power fights are happening because of position, strategic position,
It's
power.
discrimination at
It's
the end of the day.
discrimination at the end of the day. So our youngsters, they should know that ultimately we are all united by one spiritual fiber. Okay, we have to realize it, and we have to come together. That is, we have to be united. Unity in diversity, that's the slogan of the multicultural Mauritian nation.
Of course.
Okay, so we are a pearl in the world. We have to sustain it, and sustain it in a better way. And I think Upanishads, not only Upanishads, but all the scriptures that we have, help us towards that betterment of a harmonious and just society. It's important to have a just society.
You mentioned 108 Upanishads.
Yes.
How long does it take to study, to read them, to kind of, I wouldn't say understand completely at a master's or at a doctorate level, but to have a common gist of where it's leading, what's the understanding, how long does it take?
Okay, see, if we are going to study it in terms of grasping the knowledge of Upanishads, it depends on the individual. It depends on the individual, so probably it may range from 1 month to 3 months or 6 months. But if you want to study it as in, you want a transformation, you want to leave the process, you know, if you want result, or if you're result oriented, you engage, you enroll for a course within a span of 6 months, 3 years, if it's a degree program, you will be able to get a certificate at the end. But if you want to do it as a transformation for your life...
Exactly. What if you want to have a transcendental experience? Like, you
process,
read,
yeah.
but also you live it.
Yeah.
Okay. Any tips on this?
It depends again on the individual, the
Let's say from your
availability of the time. It may start, initially 3 months, initial 3 months,
So
for the process to occur. Otherwise, 1 week is enough to understand what it is.
Of course.
Yeah.
No, but what I say, do you have to be vegetarian? Do you have to do, what are the sadhanas? Do you have to do prayers, meditation, breathe? I mean, what do you think?
No, there are no restrictions like this. If we are going to learn it in a formal way, there are no restrictions like this. If you're ready, as I said, the guru will appear, the text will appear, and the journey will start. Yeah.
How do you live it in terms of your daily sadhanas? Do you practice daily sadhanas, or are you more involved in teaching? But you have to practice what you preach, right?
Right. Yeah. Otherwise, for that to happen, to materialize as an effect, what I say, I must be practicing that.
100%.
Otherwise, what I'm giving to my students, it will be simply superficial or superfluous. So personally, I try to do what I say. If I talk about sadhana, austerities, meditation, I do it on a daily basis. I try to keep myself, I try to be in the company of like-minded people, just a way to resource myself, to maintain that vitality, to have that energy so that I can share it to a different level, to different group of people. So most importantly, I have to control my ego. And yeah, as an academic, as a researcher, as a teacher, and also as an administrator, I encounter different life situations, some certain things related to management, to leadership, and also decision making.
It's all in the Upanishads anyway.
It's all in the Upanishads. So definitely the teachings of Upanishads help me to take better stance, better positions.
It has helped you take better decisions in your life?
Yes, indeed.
And I will not speak about only Upanishads, but also maybe about the Gita and the Vedas. I'm sure your studies about these ancient scriptures is ongoing. It never stops.
Yes, you rightly said it. It's an unending journey, and it's a process, an ongoing process.
But do you have time to do that? You keep on studying, then you teach, you have your family, personal life. How do you balance it all? I mean, do you watch TV?
Yes, I do watch Encounter. So, yes, you see, it happens seamlessly. So as I said, it becomes part of it's a way of my living.
But you had to give up few things to be able to do all these other things then.
Yeah, there is a certain element of sacrifice involved in any pursuit.
Of course.
Especially if it is a spiritual or an academic pursuit. There is a degree of sacrifice, but then you have to trade off certain things which are more sensory for something which gives me pleasure at my mental level.
You seem to be happy doing it.
Yes, I'm very happy, and especially when I get the opportunity to share such things with my students, with the audience, or with people around me.
The study of the ancient scriptures has changed your life. Can you share this experience a bit with people, as in how it helps you with your decision making? Why would you encourage people to do it? And also maybe it will tell also your motivation, why you feel it's important to share the teachings with people.
Yes, so first of all, I would say that it is very self-enlarging. Exposure to these texts makes you a very balanced person, cognitively, emotionally, and spiritually. And that helps me connect with everyone without any barrier. And it creates a different level of compassion, you know, that I used to have. So I'm more compassionate about others, not only human beings, but about nature, about the flora and the fauna, because you start believing that this divinity is in everyone. And you start feeling responsible about everything. Even if you're not directly involved in that thing, in any deed, but you think that if you're being silent, you are not acting responsibly.
So we are responsible for everything?
We are ultimately...
We are all individually responsible for everything?
For everything.
Okay.
Even if we're talking about the depletion of the ozone layer, we are responsible for that.
I agree. I totally agree.
Okay?
Yes.
For whatever is happening, it is our responsibility. And if we have had this opportunity, we have been given this education, our parents have facilitated, government has facilitated in some way or the other, we have to give back to the society. So one thing that I have learned, or I still have to learn a lot when it comes to Upanishads and Vedas, but one thing is for sure, that we get a lot from nature, from parents, from families, from our friends, from our students also, from our institution. But it's also time that we give back to the society in whichever field we are. It's not necessary that you give it in a financial way, but in terms of ideas. Shaping up the mind or the character, as Swami Vivekananda said, is something very noble and very humbling. I can say it as a teacher.
Of course.
So I would like that. I know that there are many other subjects which are more enterprising in a way, which are more career-oriented, and that is why subjects like philosophy or interest in Indian culture is decreasing. I agree. But then it is not necessary that you read something to get a job or livelihood. You know, in ancient times, whether in Greece or in India, people who were called the group of aristocrats, they were studying subjects like philosophy.
Yes.
Because they had all the luxury, okay, and they wanted this mental exercise. So we can verily do it right now. And that gives the balance of our life, makes us a better person, and I think that's the best thing.
Well, being a teacher being an educator is one of the most noble jobs, and thank you for doing what you do. And you mentioned about giving back, so thank you for taking time to come on Encounter and share your knowledge with our viewers at home. And
thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Roshan, and it's my pleasure, I would say.
Well, thank you very much, and all the best going forward. And I hope that many people send inquiries about how they can learn more about philosophies and ancient scriptures.
Sure.
At the MGI or any other place in Mauritius.
Any other place, yeah. Knowledge can take place anywhere.
Fantastic. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the end of this episode of Encounter. I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have. And if you have any queries or questions, drop an email. It's encounter@mbc.itnet.mu. Until the very next program, goodbye.